This past May term, Hanover College students were able to step into the world of soldiers and victims involved in World War II and the Holocaust. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience to travel abroad and walk in the footsteps of wartime journalists, bringing the past to the present. Meet these students who just returned from Europe on this edition of In the Studio. World War II is a monumental moment in time that revolutionized the society all of us live in today. Schools in America educate the youth about this war and its significance in shaping cultural and historical values we hold true to the nation. Rather than staying in the classroom, we had the privilege of traveling to these sites. Welcome to In the Studio. In each episode, we learn more about activities, organizations, and individuals here at Hanover College. I'm Ayanda Sutu. Today, we are a group of Hanover students who have been following in the footsteps of reporters in the European theater during World War II, learning about these conflicts, examining media reports, and practicing some journalistic techniques ourselves. Joining me are senior in psych major Taylor Caldwell, and here we also have a senior in communications major Pedro Macedo. How are you both doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing really good. Thanks. Nice.
Glad to be here.
Yes. We had the chance to travel across Europe and learn about World War II and the Holocaust and different religions. How do you guys think you would make an American audience care about what's happening so far away, and how would you help them empathize with the human experience?
Yeah. So visiting the Normandy and Omaha beaches, it was really striking to me, standing there where thousands of soldiers lost their lives. And, I remember watching Saving Private Ryan, which some say is the most accurate depiction of D-Day and war. And I just feel like making connections between the film interpretations of these occurrences with being there and learning it firsthand, from local guides, and it just physically being there on the sites we visited, it really makes one realize the importance of understanding everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would say for me, in terms of the Holocaust, I think that having the journalists and photojournalists there were the key to making the American audiences care about what was happening, even if they were so physically far away. The journalists we learned about in this class did an amazing job of making you feel as though you were really there in those places that they were at. Like Margaret Burke-White, her photos were just amazing. And when we visited Buchenwald prior to that, I had seen some of the photos from Margaret, and I think just by having those photos, it really enhanced my experience of being there and understanding what those humans went through during that time period.
Yes, I feel like what you guys both said was really, really accurate, and I totally agree with it. I feel like for me, going to Bayeux in France when we visited the VE Day experience, I felt that was just a really powerful moment to be a part of. And I feel like even though we didn't speak the French language, I think to make an American audience care, we did the job of recording that footage and editing it, and we had the opportunity to even just publish it and make it prominent for all different people to watch. So I think like with having a visual medium, it's really like standard to make the American audience care.
100%.
Yeah.
So a lot of our classes and readings talked about the importance of wartime journalists. What have you guys learned that can help inform your work as a reporter during difficult times?
Yeah, all of the journalists we read about during our course, there was Murrow, Ernie Pyle, there was Margaret Burke-White, which I think they're all unsung heroes. They were there risking their lives for the sake of information, bringing back accurate information of everything that was going on during the war. And I don't think, frankly, I don't think they get enough credit.
Yeah,
I agree. I was gonna say also, like with those authors, because I thought about Ernie Pyle and Margaret Burke-White. I mean, like you're saying, they were really big trailblazers in wartime journalism. And I think, especially with Margaret White, she did a lot of photojournalism that genuinely captured the severity of those events. And I think when you think about people like Margaret Burke-White and Ernie Pyle, they had to think about the differences in how to not exploit people, but at the same time share the honest truth about those atrocities. So I think that kind of helped me understand that with photojournalism, there's like a cultural shift that happened because people actually saw what was happening to those people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said, like, I think it took a lot of strength to do what they did, and being just in the midst of chaos and still being able to tell these people's stories and make sure that their voices are heard. I think that's what's really important, and I think it would be difficult to know, should I photograph this? Should I tell this to people? But like, they deserve to be heard. And yeah.
I totally agree.
Okay, I really want to know, would love to know, how do you think the past informs the present day we live in? Are there any lessons to be learned?
Yeah, so backpacking around Europe really allowed me to witness the stories of locals, and just hearing the tour guides tell us about just everything that they went through. I think I was just every day learning about the past, and then each day I was like, wow, I could never imagine what they went through. And I just think being able to learn what they went through helps us hopefully not make those mistakes again.
Absolutely. I mean, I think to touch on that point and connect it, I think I remember we did an assignment in Shoreditch in London where we were basically put in a new environment, like these world-time journalists who have never been to those locations before, and we had to practically navigate a new culture. Not that there wasn't a language barrier, but I think those man on the street interviews, especially like in Shoreditch where you saw the artwork and the graffiti that basically wanted to combat they're basically commenting on traditional forms of ruling, like the patriarchy and fascism. So I think you can kind of understand how those past forms of government changed how the present day people in Shoreditch live. They use art as a creative expression to help them make their voices feel liberated, in a sense, I feel like.
Yeah. I feel like there's this part of it too, you know, understanding the past, it can better prepare us for the present day, but also for the future. And for us to avoid mistakes that were committed in the past, for us to build a better future. You know, I think that not only on a structural level, you know, politics and all of that, but also on an individual level, we all have to stand up for what we believe in and for what's right.
For sure. I think also in terms of like, because when you're talking about like past forms of ruling, I feel like that touches on how like a lot of people kind of go about political standpoints now, like what we saw in Shoreditch and through the artwork, like they want to be a free group of people that want to, I guess, evoke change. And now before we conclude, I have one last question for you guys. Was there a favorite memory of this trip that you think will stick with you forever?
Yeah, well, I think every single experience for me had its value. Although my trip was cut short for reasons beyond my abilities, you know, I made sure I enjoyed every single second, even the hard parts, you know, visiting the museums, learning more about the Holocaust, you know, even the parts that were really tough and, you know, rough to learn about. They were enjoyable experiences because we were learning about, you know, such valuable pieces of history and, you know, part of all of our history, part of the history of the whole world.
I would say this is a tough question because there's so many. We just did so much in 2.5 weeks. But one memory that will stick with me forever, I think, was going to the swing dance bar where La La Land was filmed. That was just so cool to be like, I don't know, in a room with all these humans. It just felt like a very special experience that I'll never experience something like that again.
Yes, so, for sure. Like, because I loved both of those experiences that you guys were talking about. I think just the aspect of going to Europe, because I've never been to Europe, that was like a whole bucket list moment for me. Just to be able to touch on those different countries and cultures. But I feel like visiting the Louvre in Paris was really, really cool. I'm not even a huge art fanatic, but I think being in a space that has such iconic pieces and like things you study in art history and history classes, like seeing that live was really special. And then the food too. The food was amazing.
European cuisine.
Yes, absolutely no complaints whatsoever about the food.
Only the best of the best.
Yes, the absolute best. And I think even like with the subway, like taking the underground, like that's not something that I'm familiar with. I'm from the Midwest, so There's not many subways there. But I think just being able to navigate that and learn new things, even though we did get lost a couple of times, I think it's something funny to look back
it's
at
part
now.
of the experience.
Yeah, so just trial and
100%.
error for sure.
I feel like I'm a stronger person
Yes.
after going through all
Yes,
of that.
yeah.
No, physically
100%.
and mentally, yeah.
It was all very humbling.
Yes, it was just backpacking. But I mean, I'm glad I got it to do it with you guys. And then
Yeah, it was a
just,
great group.
Yeah, and then just even being seniors, like it's a really cool experience
It's
to be
really
able to do
special.
that.
And to end.
Yeah,
another
to end
year.
it off, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really great to debrief with you both about our experience abroad. It's crazy that all of us are, again, graduating in just a few days, and I think this is just a fun way to close our college career. Thanks for joining us in the studio.
Hi, I'm Taylor Caldwell, and today I am in Bayeux, France to celebrate the 80th anniversary of VE Day.
Hanover College students are rolling along to your first study abroad adventure. Students will trek along the waters, trails, and roads of England, France, and Germany. This May term, they'll learn about World War II history and journalistic techniques.
What I just witnessed was the official ceremony and the laying of wreaths at the Monument aux Morts, a truly remarkable way of honoring the sacrifice of those who have fought in the 6 Years' War, and to celebrate the end of World War II in Europe. Reporting live from Bayeux, I'm Pedro Macedo. Back to the studio.
Reporting from Hanover, I'm Ayanda Sutu.